Christine.
Thank you. Hello.
You've got a roving light there, just like
Okay, thanks. Sorry, I'm not used to reading from a piece of paper. Sandra's struggling because I spent me on. Right. I'm Christine Smith and I am the coordinator of Newcastle Wearington's Waspi group, and we have members from Berwick to Stockton. We have the support of all councils, and we have support of most of the MPs within our region. So a regional mayor needs a regional group, and we are it, aren't the girls? We've read with interest the manifestos of all candidates and note what you've said here today. I know your focus is on transport, creating jobs, training, homes, business, schools, veterans and the disabled in our society. May I draw your attention to the North East evidence hub regarding the North East census in 2021, which clearly states there are 540,559 people in the North East over the age of 60. And 65,000 of this cohort are Waspi women born in the 1950s who are victims of proven maladministration by the Department of Work and Pension, according to the Parliamentary Health Service Ombudsman final report. This report also states there is no evidence to suggest that loss of savings, the family home, or inability to gain employment despite repeated attempts would contribute to stress, anxiety, or ill health. Scotty, beam me up. Believe me, ageism is alive and well in the workplace, and we have women here who could testify to that. So far, ministers from both sides of the House have refused to engage with us face to face, and we are denied justice and compensation. 277,056 have already died since the start of our campaign, and I feel sure you will agree this is a time-sensitive situation. The Treasury have gained 181.4 billion in lost pensions alone, and we are asking for a portion of that back through fair and fast compensation at level 6, which is £10,000 plus. We think this is more than reasonable, and so does the Parliamentary APPG, which is the all-party parliamentary group, along with our legal team. We provide 3.5 million to the economy via unpaid work, assisting our communities in the form of childcare, caring responsibilities and charity work. If we didn't, this cost would fall upon local councils to fill the gap, and our children would be unable to work because they can't afford childcare provision. I therefore find it astonishing that there is no provision, recognition, representation or plan to protect or assist any of us who provide this vital unpaid work and support in our area, included in any candidate's manifesto. Would you like to explain this social exclusion? We would also like to know how you as candidates for regional mayor would both recognise and strive to ensure our claim is recognised by Parliament, considering we provide a vital contribution to our northern community. Any compensation we receive would of course be spent in the local economy to the benefit of all. How will you help Waspi women to achieve justice and help the local community? We're not shy, but we've got nout.
Okay, we'll ask the candidates reply to that question, and again we'll start with a new one that they've already spoken. So, Andrew, would you like to start?
Yes, I could start. I don't know if you want to sort of swap the order around as we go on, but I'll start on this round and leave that up for you. First of all, it's fantastic you're here. I remember when I first met some Waspi women, I think it was at the Dublin Miners Gala, and it must feel like a lifetime ago to you if you were involved in the early days. And it's amazing to have a report that vindicates essentially your stance. Everybody, thought good on you, but do you have a real chance? Is your case really robust? And we've now got the clear evidence that absolutely it is, it always was, and you've had that vindication. And a big part of that is the information and transparency as to what's happened, the information that you didn't receive when they changed the pension rules, and the fact that you weren't given that chance at an early stage to plan for the future and plan for a retirement, which was so crucial and essentially is one of the parts of the injustices you're facing. So information and transparency is a key part of something I believe in, and absence of it is again and again part of our public scandals. We saw the same thing with the Hillsborough campaign, where it took all those years to get the information out there, and obviously the same things happened with yourselves, and as you say, it's time critical and time is ticking on. Also right to highlight the ageing population, and also I think more importantly the way that you are such an important part of our informal economy. And it's not just the informal economy and those care networks, but it's also the corporate memory of our communities. It's the people who are often the bedrock of what's happening locally, and as you say, that fact that any compensation will frankly go back into communities and will circulate locally. That's why I'm very keen on investing directly within local communities, precisely for that reason, because that's where the money circulates better. So my apologies if you don't get an explicit mention in the manifesto. There's a great deal that doesn't get a mention in the manifesto. A lot of it is about examples of things rather than obviously every example. In terms of what we can do about it, then I think two things I'd highlight. One is that we should not be measuring progress by formal economic growth indicators, because that is not a fair measure of progress, and it will always leave out the contributions of people like yourselves, and indeed older and many younger people as well. We need to measure our progress by well-being indicators, and that should be front and centre. That should be, if we come back in 4 years' time and are campaigning, you should be judging us on those well-being indicators, and that should be centred to what we're doing. Another thing that I can say is that you've already mentioned you've had support from councils, the motion has gone through councils, you've got support from MPs, so absolutely you'd have my support as mayor, and I think what the mayor can be is that voice of the region that amplifies what's going on locally, not dictating what goes on locally, but amplifying what goes on, measuring the impact of the injustices you're facing and making sure that is constantly played out. And I see the red card.
Cheers, Norman. That figure, 277,000, pretty much half of the Waspi women who've been cheated out of their pensions, no longer alive to get them. I mean, that's truly shocking. My sister is someone who's affected by this. She's still somewhere off official retirement age. She now has cancer and may not actually get to have retired. And it's truly shocking when these things happen. A couple of years ago, I was talking to a woman on a doorstep who had to get a job, and she was working as an apprentice on a building site in her 60s, carrying building supplies around. And she told me that she'd spoken to a guy up in the Tory MP, who was the pensions minister at the time, and he said, why don't you just get yourself an apprenticeship? That's the level of contempt you've been trapped with, and frankly it's disgusting. In terms of things we can do, well, for carers, you're absolutely right. The reason it's not in the manifesto is I've already done it. So we support and have funded a free bus pass for all volunteers who are registered with one of the charities in the UK. I want to roll that out across the full region. I can't do it in the south of the Tyne after Thursday, fingers crossed. But that also means that your bus passes start earlier as well, because often voluntary jobs start at 9, which means you've got to be on the bus at 8:30 or whenever. So it does that too. So there are things that can be done, and we've supported a lot of charity organisations directly with a small grants fund, and there's a big long list I'm not going to go into that. But we've got to ask, why is it that so much is being picked up by the charity sector? Why is it that our councils are pretty much broke? And why isn't this getting fixed? Because there's loads of money around. We managed to bail out the banks. When the energy prices went up, we were basically bailing out the energy companies, because all of that money that came to us went straight through to £30 billion worth of profits for extremely rich people. And that's what needs to change. And when push comes to shove, you need someone who's in your corner. I've been working with you for, I don't know what it is now, about 8 years or something like that. And I've always been there for you. And even when I was still in the Labour Party, I was Labour Mayor this time last year. But and I'm sure what the journalists here will tell you, I always, when I was asked, whether it was official Labour policy or not, I always said, this is the right thing to do. And I think that manifesto that Labour Party had in 2017 and 2019 was a very good manifesto, and included compensation for the Waspi women. And the Labour Party's road back on that, I think, is a disgrace. I've always stood with you, and I always will.
Ian? Thanks very much. I'll just start by saying I might have to pop off early myself at about 2:30. I've got to get across the city to pick up your kids, if that's okay. So I might miss some of these questions towards the end. So in regards to Waspi women, the Liberal Democrats have a national policy. As we agreed that we would bring in the triple lock, and that's a Liberal Democrat policy, we have been closely following the Ombudsman's decision, and I congratulate you on the long, hard slog that you've taken, going through all the processes to get the decision that you've rightfully been given. The changes that were made were incredibly sudden and didn't really allow people to plan their lives, and some people will have been truly shocked by what's happened to you and the people you've been campaigning with. Our policy is to have you get the compensation that the Ombudsman's found that you are that you need to have for the changes that were made in such a sudden and gut-wrenching way to yourselves. In regards to care, I've always been a big fan of the Danish system. So in Denmark, they have a system where people of informal carers, and certainly my work in the NHS has always brought up, it's not just parents who end up looking after children and other dependents like disabled members of the family. It's often other older generations that are brought in to help with that. And in Denmark, you can apply for allowances to get that work, and it is hard work looking after people within your family and given that time. And in Denmark, that is formally paid, and people can recover that. And I would certainly campaign with yourself to get that sort of thing put in at a national level for informal carers in the North East. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Am I switched on? No, there we are. Thank you so much, and thank you for coming in force, and thank you for spending time with me last month as well, or earlier this month, I can't remember. It's really, really an important cause, and I'm 100% with you. The Ombudsman findings, fine, but it's not good enough. I stand by you in your fight for full and fair and fast compensation. And you've heard me say this before, and I'll say it again. We've had a Conservative government who've done this, and not only have they done this, they've then bragged about the amount of money that they've taken from essentially you, from Waspi women, and put apparently back into the economy, although I would argue, as you would, at absolutely double, treble, whatever cost, at grave cost. It is simply not good enough, and I'll stand by you in that fight for justice if I am elected to be the mayor, regardless of who is in Downing Street. You asked me to write to Keir Starmer and ask for that meeting, I've done that, and I do expect I do expect that our front bench should be engaging with you, and I would continue to push them to do that. I think it's absolutely fundamental. And frankly, I think that the dragging of the feet, the pushing it through the courts, the going on and round and round, I do think they're waiting for more Waspi women to die. I think it's a suppression of the cost. And that might sound crass to say, but I don't care. I think it's the truth, and it looks to me like that's been the strategy. We've seen that strategy employed in other scandals related to owed cash, and I do think that that's where we've got to with this. And for me, it's symbolic, because this is an injustice that only affects women. This affects the women who stayed at home and cared for the children. It affects the women who have caring responsibilities now as they're retired. It affects the women that will follow in your footsteps, the ones who are raising children now, the 25% who are economically inactive, although we know that that's not the case. We know that they're doing free childcare and social care, volunteering and campaigning. It is about a victory not just for you, for the over 200,000 women in the region who are affected by this, but it is reflective of what we need to do for the 1 million women and girls who are in and across our region. When it comes to solving some of the other issues, in my manifesto I'm the only candidate talking about that issue of childcare. We need to introduce real childcare for those getting back into work or training to support people to be able to do that. We need a strategy to deal with the supply side. That goes for social care as well. I once heard a radio programme which said that if a woman with caring responsibilities wants to leave that care responsibility and go back into the workplace, what she does is then pays a lower paid woman to take on her caring responsibilities. That is not a good enough situation for us. We've got to build policy at every level around the women and girls in our region, and that goes all the way from you and supporting you as Mayor in your plight as Waspies for full and fair compensation, right down to dealing with and supporting young people in their early years. So thank you very much for coming, and thanks for asking the question.